What's good, ladies and gentlemen? Welcome back to the channel. I'm Lotus Asakor, the one who never knows best, and in today's video I'm bringing you guys another discussion video because I've noticed that you guys seem to be enjoying these discussions that I've been uploading lately, and frankly I've been enjoying making them. It's just been kind of refreshing to just do something that's a little bit different from like booting up whatever the fighting game choice is for the day and then jumping into ranked, recording some matches real quick and throwing it on the channel. And I do things more than just that, obviously, but it is like probably the biggest chunk of what I do normally upload to YouTube. And I don't know, I saw a tweet late last night / early this morning that I thought was kind of interesting, sparked some discussion, some controversy. I made a quote tweet of it myself, and obviously the way I articulated myself and the way I worded things sparked even more conversation and it warranted its own reaction. And so I thought it was worth getting into here today. So the tweet in question comes from a user by the name of Havard, who I originally thought was Harvard, but shows that I didn't go there because I misread it at first, right? But the tweet reads, "Played against someone with TTV in their name, went to say GG's and offer advice, and he told me to not give them tips and work on myself. Forgot some people are rude for no reason. Then I matched with him again and double perfected him. Work on that, bro." Now this person is referring to the game Under Night In-Birth, System Celeste, whatever. It's a very long title, but a brand new Under Night fighting game that's currently in early access and releases officially, I believe, in another day or so. Yeah, that game just came out if you guys aren't aware, and this person ran into somebody online who had TTV in their name, pulled up to their stream, "Yo, GG's," and tried to offer them some advice. Now, do I want to speak on this, or do I want to get into like my quote tweet first? I think I'll comment on this for a moment, and then we'll get into things piece by piece. To me, this originally read as like a very kind of arrogant, condescending kind of tweet, right? I personally find it kind of, and I'm trying to word myself better than I did in my quote tweet, and be more articulate and be more delicate, I suppose, because that's just something like for me I'm trying to work on, and I'm not saying I'm doing a good job of it, but it's something that I'm working. But I get a very pretentious, arrogant kind of vibe from this. Now, here's the thing, right? Oftentimes it can be hard to discern somebody's mood, their tone, and especially their intentions behind the words that they're saying, whether that's in a tweet, whether that's in a YouTube comment, or whether that's in Twitch chat, right? That's something that I think we can all admit that we struggle with from time to time. And I feel like often is the case for myself, and maybe for you guys, you tend to assume the worst, right? You very rarely give people the benefit of the doubt. And this is something that we'll probably circle around to again later and touch back on. But with that being said, I saw this tweet and then I ended up quoting it myself and said, "I hate to burst your bubble, but you are the asshole in this situation. Most people do not want unsolicited advice, and if you can't see how going into someone else's chat for the first time ever to lecture them after beating them is super annoying, then I don't know." I then proceeded to follow this up by saying, "The streamer could have absolutely handled it better, but I do not blame them for being annoyed in that situation." Now, as somebody who is a content creator, somebody with a decently sized platform and you know, following an audience or whatever, and as somebody who's been streaming fighting games on Twitch themselves for almost 6 years now, I guess, because DBFZ is when I first really started on the stream grind, and it's crazy to think that not only is that game 6 years old, but I've been doing this for 6 years, and makes me feel a little bit old at this point, right? But anecdotally, in my experience, right, I have had countless people come through to the stream to say GG's after they've won in the set, right? This is typical of people who just trying to be smug or just kind of like assholes, like I said in the tweet, right? And so when I see this person's tweet, I see it the same way as I've seen countless times in my own chat. It's like, you know, you coming through to say GG's, "Oh, you need some tips, bro, you need some," because that's just the type of, it's just, you're just kind of being a dickhead, you know what I'm saying? Because it's not that it never happens, but seldom does somebody come into chat and say GG's after a loss, right? It does happen. I've had it happen to me. I've seen it happen to others. And there are people who are replying to both my tweet or the other person's tweet was saying, you know, similar stories. It absolutely happens. But in my 6 years of streaming Dragon Ball FighterZ, Tekken, Mortal Kombat, Street Fighter, etc., the majority of the people who will come through to your chat and say GG's or try to like help you or teach you or whatever are people who are being arrogant kind of jerks. And they only say it after they've won. You know what I'm saying? Even disregarding the advice part, people saying GG's, like if you play fighting games, you know, bro. For one, like it is one of those things where like when we salty, we ain't trying to hear that GG shit, because you trying to think of the excuses as to why you lost, or man, that person sucked, or whatever the case may be. And granted, some of you are probably more mature. You know what I'm saying? You handle those situations a lot better. It doesn't matter you one way or the other, etc., etc. And that's something that, you know, if you are in that sort of mindset, that that's how you feel, that's your belief, and that's your philosophy, then that's great. And that's something that we should all continue to work toward and aspire to be more like that and be more mature in how we handle the situations and how we handle salt or handle a loss or whatever the case may be, right? But I think a lot of you guys can understand the feeling of like, GG, you know, say you wouldn't have said that if you lost, or oh, I ain't trying to hear that right now, right? So that's already first and foremost. Second of all, it does come across as condescending or arrogant to then try to be like, or here's what you could have done better, or whatever the case, or like trying to teach somebody or lecture somebody or mansplain some shit, right? And I've seen this a lot with women who I've seen in the fighting game community, but even with other players, or like I said, even in my own experience, right? And there's often times where it's like you'll sometimes have somebody who will come through trying to teach you something that you already know, or explain something to you that you already know, or maybe somebody who may not even know more than you. They might know something that you don't, but in general don't have more knowledge, which doesn't mean that you can't learn from them, right? Or somebody who's less skilled than you, which again still doesn't mean that you can't learn from them. But it's like, I feel like in my experience, oftentimes this type of attitude or mindset or like interaction or action in general comes from somebody who is not genuinely seeking to help you improve or to teach somebody or anything like that. It's from a self-fulfillment kind of place where they're only doing it to boost their own ego or make themselves look good or feel like they have something to offer to somebody else, and not because they want to see some genuine improvement or be helpful to somebody. And again, I say this from personal experience. This is something that I have encountered many times over the years, and I'm sure I will continue to encounter it for as long as I continue doing content creation and playing fighting games on YouTube and Twitch and etc, etc. But with that being said, despite the fact that some people do it with ill will or like, you know, ulterior motives or whatever the case may be, that doesn't mean that it warrants a super negative or super harsh reaction. Now, here's the part that I don't really understand though, and the part that confuses me the most. While I understand that if this is something that I wanted to chime in on, I could have done it in a much more respectful manner. If you scroll through this person's replies and you scroll through their quote tweets, and even as I was scrolling through my For You page, I saw a lot of people who are essentially in agreement with me and were saying the exact same thing, sometimes almost verbatim, right? Whether they were calling this person an asshole or a jerk, or saying that they lack social awareness, whatever the case may be. And the point of this video isn't to dunk on this guy, so I'm not trying to do that, and I hope people don't go and like hate mob this, because that's not what this is about, right? Whether you agree with me or disagree with me, or agree with them or disagree with them in this situation, right? That's not the point. But the part that confuses me is that I see a ton of people echoing the same sentiment or saying the same thing as me, right? But in my replies and in my quotes, I'm the one getting dunked on. And this was one of those situations where I had to step back as like, wait, am I the jerk? Am I the one being a dickhead? And again, like calling the guy an asshole, uncalled for. Could have worded that many other ways, whether I just wanted to say that, you know, you're the one being the jerk here, or, you know, you need to learn some social awareness, whatever the case may be, right? But I see a lot of people verbatim damn near saying the same things as me, but getting a much different reaction. And it's to the point now where I'm like, when did I as a person become someone who can say the exact same thing as someone else, but because it came from me, people disagree with it or take it a certain way compared to when somebody else says it? I don't really know when that became a thing. And on top of that, for that matter, to make this even more interesting, if you go to the streamer in question's VOD, which we're going to do here in just a moment, if you go to the VOD and listen to how they responded to this person when they arrived in chat, you know, offering advice, they were not rude or disrespectful at all, in my opinion. In fact, I feel like they were quite tame and quite polite, despite the fact that they were kind of annoyed and frustrated with the results of the matches that they played. And, you know, they have an interaction that we'll cover later where they basically hashed it all out. But it's mind-blowing to me the high road that the streamer took, because in my opinion, they were very, very tame. And if you don't believe me, you can listen to the interaction right here for yourself.
GG's. Howard, we'll play again, don't worry. I couldn't deal with the mashing. I'm at a point where I'm still learning the character, so I can't deal with like the obvious mash. I've played Uni as well. I'm not a new player as well. Oh, fuck. Good shit. Don't worry. We got plenty of time just to learn.
That's it. That is the interaction. That is the altercation that started all of this. And like the point of this video isn't to show like, oh no, like no, look, this guy really is a jerk and this and that, but I'm just providing the context. And I say this to say because like I wanted to like go back and be like, oh man, that was kind of rude of me. But it's like upon seeing this and be like, what bro? He was so polite. He was so tame in his response, despite the fact that he was, you know, probably a little bit annoyed or salty. I wouldn't even say that he sounds annoyed or frustrated or all that salty in this at all. And I know, like me, I've said and felt way worse after, you know, some of my losses sometimes, and as some of you can probably relate. And again, we got to be better about how we handle things and how we talk to people when we're a little upset because we lost in a video game, because it's not that deep or that serious at the end of the day, right? But regardless, same could be said about the follow-up tweet that ensued after this interaction, because that wasn't warranted at all. And in fact, I feel like there was so much sauce put on that tweet to the point that it feels so disingenuous that it's damn near like you lied, because that guy wasn't rude at all. What Soul said was so polite and tame, in my opinion, and maybe you guys disagree, but I don't know. And like I said, the point of this video isn't to dunk on this guy in particular, but I'm just providing context on all the situation, because it's like there's a lot of things and different tangents and branches I'm going on and coming back to and circling around and stuff, and I'm just trying to provide all this context or whatever. But yeah, it's just crazy to me. And then like given this context, it's just like I feel like it also kind of shows that like this guy maybe wasn't being genuine or altruistic in his response and was coming from kind of a place of ego, because you then running to the internet to brag how you double perfected this guy who said, yeah, you know, I'm a new character, I'm still learning, I'm not new to the game, but yeah, I'm just figuring out how this works. And you're like, yeah, and I double perfected him after he was rude to me. It's like, nah, bro, that just kind of shows that like you probably shouldn't have been given the benefit of the doubt, which is why I responded the way that I did with my tweet, and why a lot of people feel the same way. Unless I guess it comes from me, because when I say it, it's like a horrible take, or me being a dickhead, or people thinking I'm some sort of villain. But if a top player says, if Big Bird says it, or if the Kill Sage says it, or if Kizzy K says it, or if basically anyone else says it, then it's okay. And all the people I just named, them is my homies, so I ain't got no problem with that. I don't know Big Bird, but the rest of them is my homies, so it's cool. But it's just like, when did I get this reputation of like being like, oh, Lotus said it, fuck him? You know what I'm saying? While I do feel I could have worded my own tweet a little bit better and been more respectful or tasteful with how I said it, I still stand on it. Like I still agree that in my opinion, the guy who made the tweet is more so in the wrong than the streamer is, especially now with even more context, which just makes it even that much crazier that without this context, the people are dunking on me. But it is what it is, I guess. I just, you know, we gonna talk more about this as this video goes on. As you can tell, this video goes on for a while, so yeah, just stick around, stay tuned. But with that being said, they're obviously very mature and very, I don't know, responsible, or just good ways of handling that situation, even if it does come from a place of ill will or malintent, whatever the case may be. Like I said, you can ignore it, you could politely decline whatever advice, you could simply say GG's back and just go on with your day, because at the end of the day, like, it's a video game, right? It's never that deep, it's never that serious. And I feel like that's something that's worth noting as well, particularly with me, is that I feel oftentimes I'm taken out of context or misunderstood. And this is going to get into the whole other conversation that we're going to touch on later, but it's like a lot of times, because of the choice of language I use or the wording that I may give with something, it gets interpreted in a certain way regardless of the context. And I feel like the context matters a lot. Obviously, when it's text, that type of context can get taken out or can be, you know, lost, right? Like as we said earlier, it's kind of hard sometimes to discern what somebody's meaning or what their tone is or whatever when it's just words typed out, right? But if somebody were to come into my chat, after like curb stomping, it was like GG's and it was smiley face, I'm like, you bum ass nigga, right? Because I said bum ass nigga, right? Like if I were to reply to somebody and just said bum ass nigga like in the chat, that sounds way aggressive. It's like, yo, it's not that serious, like why are you tripping, blah blah blah. But it's like when I say, man, you a bum ass nigga, you know what I'm saying? Like there's the way I said it, the inflection of the voice, you know, the context, the tone, that all means a lot and carries a lot of weight, or at least so I thought, right? I thought that this was something that was like damn near universally understood and didn't necessarily even need to be explained. But over my years on the internet, I've learned that even in like out loud speech form, some people don't really get that context or interpret it how you meant it because of the words that were used. And that's something that I've had to accept and understand. And that's why I would like to improve in how I speak to people or how I respond to people. Because even if you're saying something in a joking manner, obviously not everybody's always going to take that the right way. And certain words just don't mean the same thing to certain people, or certain words just, you know, have a different kind of impact on people, right? For example, I'm black, I say the N-word, it is what it is, right? I'm sure a lot of you are accustomed to hearing it from other black people, and if you're black, you probably use it a lot as well. But there are certain groups of people out there who don't like being called that. You know what I'm saying? Whether you're black or not, whether they're black or not, hey bro, don't call me no nigga. Okay, cool. And you got to respect that, right? And so likewise, it's like if I were to call somebody a bum ass nigga and they take offense to that, I can't just be like, oh bro, I was just, I mean, I can't say, oh, I was just joking. But if that's something that like offends them, then at some point I got to take a step back and be like, okay, let me not use that type of language toward this person because they don't like that, they take offense to that. And that's something that's sometimes easier said than done, especially when you've grown up speaking or carrying yourself a certain way for so long or whatever. But yeah, and also, if in case you haven't realized by now, this is going to be a long tangent ramble thing that probably goes on for a while, right? And we'll get back to the Twitter, but let me go back to the full screen because we're already like 10 minutes deep and I was in a small box for a minute. But yeah, so anyway, going on, I feel like the way you say the words matters a lot, but at the end of the day, certain words are going to mean certain things to certain people, and that's just the way it is. So even in this tweet, right, where I said I hate to burst your bubble, but you are the asshole, I could have definitely chosen a different word other than asshole. And like if I could go back and edit the tweet, I would, right? It's already too late, the damage is already done or whatever. And that's just something about me in general, is that, and I understand this, and it's something that I'm genuinely trying to work on, is that I can be very abrasive. And so something that I've been doing is trying to be less abrasive and choose my words more carefully. Again, I don't always do the best job, right? But also just being very open-minded to being corrected or to responding gently to somebody who misinterprets the things that I'm saying or misunderstands the intent behind what I was saying or doing or whatever the case may be, right? So actually, if I take you to my replies, you can see a couple of the tweets that I wrote back to people who were replying to my quote tweet of this person. Anyway, moving on, we also have a quote from Masoma here, who is a high-level fighting game player themselves, and says, "I can understand not appreciating unsolicited advice, since some do it for ego. Very, very often the case in my experience. However, it seems some use that as an excuse to act childish, and that's pretty bad. Also, very common in my experience. Assuming the worst intentions and going off is not doing any favors for the streamer or potential viewer. And I agree, although it can be difficult to not assume the worst when experience has proven that assumption to usually be the case. I think more etiquette should be practiced on both ends," to which that they replied, "I do think more can be done about it on both ends. While I can't say the OP original poster is doing it purely for altruistic reasons, I think giving the benefit of the doubt is just better for everyone. If you already know or someone proves themselves to be an asshole, then go in by all means." And this is another point that I kind of want to talk about for a bit as it pertains to giving somebody the benefit of the doubt. In the past, I would say that I was somebody who more often than not would give chatters and viewers or whoever's in my Twitch chat or my comments the benefit of the doubt. These days, I would say that is very far from the case. And the reason for that being is that because in the past, I would have a multitude of different people come through to the streams or to the comments or whatever, and I was trying to be, you know, a friendly content creator. If we're being honest, I've never been a super overly social, like super friendly, chummy, I'm trying to be everybody's friend and make everybody happy kind of person, right? But with being a content creator, you're trying to put your best foot forward and seem more personable, right? Not to say that I'm being fake, but I'm just being personable, right? I'm just making myself, you know, more approachable and just trying to act according to how I see fit to the environment, to the people around me. And so when in my first few years of like doing streams and stuff like that, I would sometimes see comments where I would think to myself, that person's going to be a problem, or straight up like, this person's an idiot, or like, that's dumb, or whatever, right? But you don't immediately respond that way. These days you might catch me doing that, right? But it didn't used to be that way. But what I noticed over time is that there were time and time again where I would see somebody who would be kind of weird, like kind of give me like a weird vibe or whatever, or like I would interpret something a certain way and be like, maybe I'm like thinking too deep, or I'm looking too far into it, or this person hasn't necessarily done anything wrong. And then my gut instinct ended up being right, and the person was somebody who eventually needed to be banned or like hidden from the comments or whatever the case may be. This has happened again countless times. I cannot tell you how many times it's happened where somebody comes into chat and it's not always about like, oh, they beat me in a set and they said GG's, but just in a very general sense where it's like you want to give people the benefit of the doubt. And I would do it over and over again where it's like, okay, you know, this person's just, you know, they, you know, maybe there were no bad intentions here, or maybe there's not something to really dwell on or worry too much about. And then you kind of let that behavior ensue, and then you just kind of let them, you know, hang around until they eventually show the true colors of what I thought to be true. And I tend to consider myself a pretty good judge of character, but I'm only human at the end of the day, and I can be wrong about people all the time. There are tons of things I've been wrong about in life, and there's way more things I'm going to continue to be wrong about in life till the day that I die. That's just how it is, right? But that being said, I feel like my track record shows that in terms of like judging people's character or like reading the vibes of like what I think a person is going to end up being like, more often than not, I feel as though I am right. But I say all that to say that the reason why it has become so difficult to give people the benefit of the doubt, even if they maybe are being altruistic or have good intentions or were being genuine, is that because in the past, I have encountered so many disingenuous people, or I've encountered so many people where I gave them the benefit of the doubt and then they proved that they weren't worthy of giving that benefit to. It just becomes difficult. You know what I'm saying? It's like when you've given people so many chances or given so many chances to people and they've let you down over and over and over again, you start to be like, all right, I got to close myself up a little bit. I got to keep my guard up a little bit more. And then you start hardening your shell more and more and more until you get to a certain point. And I feel like I'm at a point now where my shell has been pretty hardened, and I'm not trying to maybe necessarily soften up per se, but like, you know what I'm saying? I'm trying to be a little less abrasive. And I that's a word you're probably going to hear me say again. I've already said it a few times, but being less abrasive in how I handle situations or how I respond to people is something that I personally want to work on. And I think that a lot of people could stand to work on, especially as a content creator. And no one's perfect, right? No one's a saint, but there are a few creators who like I watch very regularly that I marvel at their ability to navigate the waves of people that they have come through, whether that's Sajam, whether that's Maximilian, or even if that's the homie to Kill Sage, who isn't like one of the super huge content creators, but he's a decent sized creator with a decent sized following. And like when I watch his streams or see his you know, his comments or whatever, or his replies, sometimes I'm just like, yeah, I don't know how you do it, man. Your patience is a lot better than mine, because I'm a guy who has a lot of patience when it comes to like real life things, like, oh, I'm waiting for this package, or I'm trying to build this house of cards, or like I'm waiting for this food to cook. But like when it comes to dealing with people, my patience can be very thin. And I don't know why that is exactly, but again, one of those things that I know that I need to work on, and so that's just what I've been making an effort to do. Anyway, going back to some of these tweets, we have somebody who replied and says, honestly, it just makes it sound like you're a man-child, especially when the person isn't coming off as offensive. If you don't want the advice, just don't respond. And to some extent, you know, this person makes a good point. I don't entirely agree, but only because you can't really tell for absolute certain when it's like somebody being condescending or not. I feel like the default for a lot of us, myself included, is to assume the worst. And I don't know if I necessarily believe that you should always still give people the benefit of the doubt, because like going against that gut feeling or like that gut instinct is really hard to me. But I'm open-minded to the idea that everybody's not out to get you. Everybody's not out to be a jerk. So you don't have to keep your guard up like that all the time and then immediately assume the worst about a person and respond in an overly aggressive manner because you interpreted something a certain way. Like, I feel like that's fair, right? But again, you know, I reply to them saying, I say, well, that's probably how I would respond most of the time. Because like, you know, 9 times out of 10, if I see something on the internet that I disagree with or that I don't like, I just ignore it. But the thing about ignoring things is that when you ignore it, it goes unnoticed because you ignored it. So nobody will ever know. You guys will never see the hundreds of tweets that I've typed and deleted and never sent, the countless Twitch chats that I've typed up and then hit backspace after highlighting it all, the countless DMs that I typed up and then deleted. You know what I'm saying? You'll never know or never see because I didn't hit send. I didn't hit enter on it. So I started to go type it up and I was like, it's not worth the time, not worth the energy. This isn't the right move. It's ignore it, move on. Cool, right? But you'll always see when I do. And that's something that, you know, it kind of like skews the perspective because it's like, there are way more times where I ignore certain people or comments or whatever, but you'll see every time that I don't because, well, it's there in the public, right? And so it just kind of warps your perspective. It's like, oh, why are you always feeding into this, or why do you always reply to these types of people? And this isn't just about me. I'm relating it to myself because, you know, my video, my channel, which it also applies to me. But whether it's Rhyme Style, C-Reacts, Maximilian, Nanogenic, Pokimane, XQC, whoever, right? Sometimes you clap back, sometimes you don't. But when you don't, no one will ever know. But when you do, everyone will, because, well, it's documented. But the times that aren't. And this like itself goes back to like a whole other tweet that I made like a couple of years ago. I want to say at this point, maybe like 3-4 years ago at this point. Damn, it's really been that long, huh? But I was talking about like, you know, I feel like some people don't really have the experience, right, to speak on certain subjects or conversations or about how somebody's supposed to react or feel or respond to a situation when you haven't been in that person's shoes, right? Yeah, like I said, I made a whole tweet about that once upon a time because I went on a rant on stream, but I digress. So anyway, going back, my response to that person was, well, that's probably how I would personally respond most of the time. But by the same token, coming into chat like that comes off as disingenuous and condescending the majority of the time, or most of the time. I definitely meant to write majority, and I wrote the most. Not grammatically correct or whatever. It's more about self-fulfillment than actually trying to help someone for a lot of those people. And again, that comes from personal experience. In my experience, it's not about actually helping somebody. It's about somebody trying to feed their own ego. Very rarely is it somebody actually genuinely being altruistic. It's not about them wanting to see the person that they were up against improve. It's about wanting to showcase their knowledge or their skill and say like, yeah, I'm so good. You can learn so much from me. You know what I mean? And that's why it gets the type of reaction that it does. And I feel like a lot of people in the FGC kind of have a similar sentiment. There's definitely people who disagree with me and with my tweet, but there's a lot of people who agree and are like, yeah, you know, it's just kind of like courtesy or etiquette. It's like, okay, you don't come in after stomping somebody. Hey, GGs, by the way, here's some advice. You know what I mean? Not to say that there's like, oh, this code of conduct that everybody must follow, and this is how I feel, and you have to respect it because how I feel matters more, and it's the most, and like you have to baby me because I'm so soft and sensitive. You know what I'm saying? But again, that's how some people kind of took it. That's not really how I meant it. But again, I digress. So anyway, that kind of leads me into like the next thing that I kind of wanted to talk about and ramble about for a bit, and that is that lately I've genuinely been feeling misunderstood. And I'm not trying to come off as like some, oh, woe is me, super emo, angsty teenage, whatever, you know what I'm saying? But like, as somebody on the internet, again, with a decent sized following, there's a lot of eyes on me, right? And there are people who are listening to every word that I say and reading every word that I type, and everybody on the internet has an opinion or has a response of some sort. And lately I've been feeling like, man, I don't even really know how to put it into words. There have been so many cases lately, like in the past year or two, where I'll say something, whether it's in a tweet or in a video, and I'll think I'm making myself very clear, and I'll think that I'm articulating myself as best as I possibly can, and I still get misinterpreted or taken out of context or misconstrued. And it's been something that I've been struggling with a lot, like even more so lately, like in these last few months. And it's become a thing where I've had to sit down and take a step back and ask myself, am I just not doing anywhere near as good of a job as speaking as I think I am? Or are people just being willfully ignorant? And I've been struggling with this a lot. I've been putting a lot of thought into this. Like it's something I've been thinking about basically every day. It's like, okay, am I doing a poor job of speaking? Can I do a better job? And like, a lot of times, and in a lot of these cases, I'm like, okay, I could have said this better. I could have worded it like this or whatever. But then there's like other situations where I feel like it's something that's very simple. And it's like, I don't understand how somebody took this and turned it into that, right? And one thing I've had to remind myself is that a lot of people on the internet are just very argumentative for the sake of being argumentative. There are a lot of people who are always hunting for a reason to be upset, for a reason to argue, and people who will disagree with you just for the sake of disagreeing, and people who will like you or dislike you for no real reason either. The thing I don't want to fall into is the trap of just thinking like, oh, just writing off anything and everything is like, oh, that person's just being a hater, or that person is just being willfully ignorant, or whatever. Because it's very easy to just shrug those types of things off and be like, oh, this person's just an idiot. Like, I didn't do anything wrong. Like it's a them problem, not a me problem. But lately there have been so many cases where it's hard for me to discern, okay, was that a me problem or was that a them problem? Are they being willfully ignorant? Does this person just want to argue? Could I have done better here? Could I have done better there? And like I said, definitely cases where I can do better, where I can be better, but it is absolutely something I've been struggling with a lot. And I wanted to talk about it in this video, and I even thought about talking about it in a tweet, but it's kind of hard to even figure out where to look for answers to something like this. Like, because these are questions that I ask myself and things that I think about, but like, I'm sure a lot of you guys in the comments will be like, oh man, like, no, Lotus, you're right, this and that. Because the majority of you guys are always going to agree with me, right? Whether it's because I'm just one of your favorite content creators, or you genuinely do agree with me, or you're going with like whatever the popular opinion is, or whatever the case may be, right? I don't think I've ever had a video where it's mostly negative. Even like some of my videos that have like the most dislikes on them, or like where I said or did something that people didn't really agree with, or like struck a strong reaction with people, still was like 80% or more positive, right? Like I made the Eddie Gordo video a few days ago, and that warranted a pretty negative reaction from a decent amount of people. But that video still has like 89% likes, which is low-ish, I guess, in comparison to like the normal 98 or 99% I normally get on a video, right? Because nobody gets 100. Or, well, I mean, some people probably get 100%, but you know what I'm saying? Once you get to a certain level, it's like you're always gonna have dislikes. And the dislikes themselves doesn't bother me. I don't care about that. But it is a good way to gauge, okay, I'm eliciting a negative reaction from people. Why am I eliciting that reaction? And with that video in specific, a lot of that is a case of people like not actually watching the video or listening to the things that I had to say, or just having their own opinion, disagreeing, and hitting the dislike button. And that is what it is. But just in a very general sense, I've had people respond very negatively to me about things that I didn't think were that deep or that serious. And that's something I kind of wanted to touch on earlier, and it kind of slipped my mind just because we're all over the place or whatever, right? Going back to what I was saying about language and like how I word things, is that I think people also believe that because I'll use certain words that I'm a lot more passionate about something or care a lot more than I really do. But at the end of the day, it's like once I turn the game off, or once I turn off Twitter or whatever, that shit don't really matter to me. You know what I'm saying? I'm not thinking about most of that stuff. The things that I'm thinking about, but yeah, that is something I definitely wanted to know. And I wish I'd have remembered to bring it back up earlier and circle around to that train of thought. But it was like, because of my word choice, oftentimes I think people think that I'm way more passionate or sensitive or emotional or care a lot more about certain things than I really do. When in all reality, this is how I fucking talk. You know what I mean? But especially when it's a tweet, because like I said earlier with my example, like bum ass nigga, it's like there's a big difference between reading bum ass nigga and hearing me say, oh, yo, bum ass nigga. You know what I'm saying? Like it's a big difference. But anyway, going back to what I was just saying just before that, yeah, it's kind of hard to even look or to find those answers, because you know, if I make a tweet, most people are going to agree with me, because most of the people who are going to see it are my own followers. If me talking about in this video, most of you guys are going to be on my side because you're my audience, right? And so it's kind of hard to find out what the real answer is, or like what I should be looking for. You know what I'm saying? Like this video in general, like I said, it's just one big ramble, one big discussion. There's not a whole lot of, there's not a point I'm trying to make at the end of the day with this video. Like I said, it's just me rambling and getting some thoughts out there. But I feel like more and more often lately, I'll say something, whether it's in a YouTube video or in a tweet, and no matter how clear I think I'm being or how I feel like it should be interpreted, there are people who will always take it differently or the wrong way and turn it into an argument or a debate or a reason to like lash out or have this like super negative or emotional reaction, when I'm like, I didn't think it was like that, or I didn't think it was that serious, or I didn't think it was that deep, or I thought I did a much better job of doing this or explaining this or talking about this, right? And you know, I can't really figure out the difference between people who are just doing that for the sake of it, or when there are times where it's like, okay, no, that was my fault. Like I should have said this better. I should have done that better. Because I've seen people who's like, nah, Lowe's, like you're not tripping, bro. Like, you know how the internet is, da 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 da. But it's just not that simple to me. You know what I mean? Especially when it feels like it's happening so frequently lately. It's like, okay, if this is like if this is a pattern, if this is something that's happening this often, like it's got to be something on my end, right? That's what I started thinking. That's what I started saying to myself. It's like, okay, if this is happening much more frequently and this often, it has to be something that you're saying or doing, or way you're carrying yourself, or how you're articulating it, or the words you're using, the back, something you're doing has to be in the wrong. It has to be an error on your end for people to keep acting this way. But that's not necessarily true, because this is the internet and things don't always make sense. People don't have to have a logical reasoning or basis for their arguments or for their comments. People can just say shit just for the sake of it, whether it's just to fuck with you or just to get a reaction out of you or just because they're bored or whatever the case may be. You know what I'm saying? Like people will say shit just cause, for no reason. You don't have to have a logical reason or basis to say what you want to say on the internet. People just say anything, and that's what makes it so hard, because you don't know who has a genuine opinion on something and like they a genuine misunderstanding, and like this is how you need to correct them or correct yourselves, or if there's any issue at all. You know what I mean? And I don't know, like I said, no real point to this conversation. It's just something that's been on my mind a lot lately, and I kind of just wanted to discuss it and throw it out there and just, I don't know, see how you guys are feeling. You know what's funny? Even on the video that I made a couple of days ago, right? The video about Punk's tweet, I made that tweet where it was like, you know, our fighting game's luck based. And in that video, I discussed a tweet that Punk made where he was like, Tekken is like the last fighting game that actually requires your opponent to be more skilled than the other in order to win. And you know, that's the quick Spark Notes version of it. But in that video, I was basically asking the question about whether or not people feel as though the skill gap is shortening between low level and high level players, and whether fighting games these days are making it easier for lower level players to beat higher level players, and et cetera, et cetera. And you know, the best title that I came up with at the time of publishing the video was "Are Fighting Games Luck Based?" Because in that video we also talked about RPS and putting people in guessing situations and how easy people get to those guessing situations, and et cetera, and you know, how fighting games have been dumbed down and how they have allowed lower level players to put high level players in a situation where it's like both players are guessing, and whoever's wrong loses. You know what I'm saying? So that it allows for a lower level player to compete with somebody who's more skilled or knowledgeable in general, but all are human in the eyes of 50-50. You know what I'm saying? RPS is RPS. Take a guess. You know what I'm saying? And so basically, I wanted to have a discussion more so about that, and about whether or not, you know, that was the case if less games are requiring more skill. And you know what I'm saying? Basically just talk about, is the skill gap shortening and everything like that, and how people feel about RPS, and you know, is there any truth to Punk's tweet? And the majority of the comments, like the video did really well. It got a lot of engagement, a lot of comments, a lot of likes, and people seem to enjoy the discussion. But the majority of the comments were just saying like, oh yeah, like yeah, there's luck in everything. You know, there's luck in all aspects of life. There's always going to be a factor of luck. And it was all about like the luck thing from the title, and not necessarily a lot about like the meat and potatoes of what I spoke about in the video. And that was again one of those cases where it's like, okay, was that my fault for like not coming up with the best title? Did I not kind of get the point across of what I really wanted people to talk about in the comments? Or did people just like read the title and they just left the comment without it? You know what I'm saying? So it's like, it's kind of hard to gauge that, you know what I'm saying? But that was one of those videos where, you know, I saw the analytics and I was like, okay, the engagement is high, lots of likes, lots of comments, the audience retention was good, but I still didn't get the type of, you know, discussion or comments that I wanted from it. And that's just one of those cases where it's like, oh, I wasn't like misinterpreted in a way that was like negative, like people weren't angry with me, and, you know, there wasn't like like an argument or a debate, but it was like, it's like, damn, did I fuck up here? Or are people just like, you know, just responding without really listening to what I had to say? And I still don't have an answer to that, because another thing too is that like when I see somebody's comment, I don't know how much of the video they watched or listened to. Or when I see somebody reply to a tweet, I don't know if they listened or read the entire tweet. You know, there are some people who watch 30 seconds of a video. There's some people who this video might end up being damn near an hour long by the time I'm finished yapping, and they might listen to every single word that I have to say. But I don't know who's who. I can see certain things, but I can't see the specifics down to the nitty-gritty like that. So I don't know. It's one of those things where I don't think I'll ever have a true answer to, and it's something that I'll continue to ask myself and just try to do the best that I can to be the best person and content creator that I can be. But that's just kind of going to be, I guess, a never-ending journey that I guess you guys will embark on with me if I'm lucky. I kind of want to bring this back up earlier and go back to the tweet in question, but like I said, I'm all over the places because I don't script these things. I'm literally just turning on the camera and just yapping and rambling. But if we go back to Havard's tweet and we go to there's stuff, we should be able to see the replies. We're able to find this person right here, John Jack, aka Sokuro or Sokuroi. But this is the player, the streamer in question, who they had the altercation with. And he responded by saying, "I want to apologize to you firsthand. Was tilting during the match we played. It's never my intention to disrespect people." We find this tweet right here from John Jack, aka Sokuro, I believe is their name, which is the streamer in question that Havard had actually played against and went to their chat. And he responded by saying, "I want to apologize to you firsthand. Was tilting during the match we played. It's never my intention to disrespect people or ruin the amazing vibe of the game we play. I do apologize. I was out of line completely." And this goes back to a point I made earlier where even though I don't agree with the approach that Havard had in the chat, did it warrant a super overly negative or aggressive reaction from anyone? No, of course not. Depending on the situation and how you're feeling and the vibes and the emotions, the context, whatever, it's like this can be seen as like very condescending or it could be very genuine. And like I said before, it's like this is one of those things where like this could definitely strike you as like, oh, this person's just trying to stroke their own ego, blah, blah, blah. Or if you're a much more optimistic person and not necessarily as negative as I can be or whatever, by contrast, you might say like, oh, this is like a very genuine, nice, helpful person who's trying to help somebody improve and learn the game, whatever. This is somebody who's been around for a minute, so they have something to offer and they want to help me out. Knowing me, that's not how I would have interpreted it off rip, especially not in the situations like, oh, this person whooped my ass, now they coming in, I've been playing for like 5 years, you know, you you want some advice, let me know, you know, I've been playing, you know, I'm kind of that nigga around town. I'll be like, man, fuck yeah, you know what I'm saying, because I know me, right? But maybe that's not how I should be, you know what I'm saying? And again, want to highlight this interaction because the way that they handle it is beautifully. And this is the type of thing that you want to see in the community where we have these rational exchanges where it's like, you know, both sides can acknowledge, you know, what they could have done better or like take accountability, apologize and be like, you know, this is how we can move forward and continue to grow and play and learn or whatever. And Havard responded by saying, "Hey, sorry for putting you on blast. Was just a bit frustrated by the way it turned out. I'm used to the scene being smaller and new people asking lots of questions, so that response was unusual. For real, if you ever wanted to DM me and ask for tips or find me on Discord, hit me up." So for the most part, at the end of the day, I think this turned out pretty positive, although the reaction and engagement that this sparked, including, like I said, from myself, the damage, if you want to call it that, has already been done there. But I'm glad that at least between those two, things seem to have worked out for the best. But this is one of the things where I was like, "Oh, motherfucker, you the asshole." Because like, again, because I have experience with it. Like, it's something I've experienced time and time again. So when I seen it, I was like, here we go. Another one of these dudes who think is like, "Oh no, I was just trying to help." Like, no, you weren't. You wasn't trying to help. You was just trying to be a dick. You was just trying to stroke your own ego. You was trying to flex. I've seen that a lot. Seen it a lot. But that's pretty much it, man. Long ramble video. This is close to like an hour long at this point. I don't know how long it'll be like once I chop up some of the dead air. But yeah, man, I don't know. The internet's an interesting place. Context and tone matter a lot, and a lot of times those are lost through text. But something I've learned is that even through speech, a lot of times those things don't translate the way that you expect them to or want them. And so I know for me personally, that is something that I'm struggling a lot with, both to understand and how to navigate. And I don't know if it's something that I'll ever quite figure out, but it's something I'll definitely keep trying. But yeah, I don't know what type of comments will be under this video. I don't even know what type of comments I want to see under this video, but hopefully somebody enjoyed listening to me ramble for, like I said, damn near an hour at this point. So I don't know. Let me know your thoughts in the comment section down below. Hit this video with a like if you enjoy it. Subscribe if you haven't already so you can stay tuned for all this content I'm bringing you. With all being said, off today, and remember, this can happen to you from the bad. Later.